was stuff. And some of that stuff is out in the narthex if you've been hungering for a candelabra at your house. Or anything else you see back there, please take them home. There's a nice tall, very tall bookshelf, another place to put more of your knickknacks, paddywhacks, books. Please take those things home or they will go the way of all things. So, do you remember bumper stickers? Bumper stickers consisted of pictures or short sayings that we would put onto sticky pieces of, well, some kind of paper, slap them on the car so that the person behind us would know what we found funny or what we valued, what we believed, or perhaps what our political views might be. And one of my favorite bumper stickers would start with the one who dies with the most, and then you fill in the blank, the most toys, the most yarn, the most cloth, the most tools, the most fish, whatever. The one who dies with the most wins. Because in those few words, we immediately knew what someone valued, what they spent their money on, and what they did with their free time. Now, Jesus told a story about a man who valued his crops and his products. The man was wealthy, but he had had a really good harvest, and his barns wouldn't hold everything he already had, plus this new bumper crop. So the man decided to tear down the barns and build bigger barns, and that way he could retire and enjoy the good life. He had enough of everything to support him for the rest of his life, and echoing the words of Ecclesiastes, the man said, "I can now relax, eat, drink, and be merry." It was a really good plan, until God appeared to him that night and told him he was being a fool, that he was going to die that night, and who was going to get all this stuff now. And that's where Jesus' story ended. The last verse is something Luke added to try to help us understand what Jesus meant, but that wasn't how parables work. Jesus taught in parables because he wanted his listeners to think. We know what the man valued. He valued his crops, his barns, and his leisure. And his bumper sticker would have said, "The one who dies with the biggest barns wins." Well, just before the parable of the rich man, someone in the crowd where Jesus was teaching called out to Jesus. And he wanted Jesus to tell his brother to split the family inheritance with him. Now, we don't know what that circumstance was about, but we do know that Jesus refused to get involved. Instead, Jesus warned the man against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist of the abundance of possessions. Jesus' bumper sticker would have said, "Watch out for stuff. We don't own stuff, stuff owns us." Now, parables were designed to make the listener uncomfortable. They're designed to cause us to think about our attitudes, to think about our actions, to think about our words. They were designed to get us to think about our connection to God, to each other, and to our world. The parable of the rich man does all that and more, because it seems to me the rich man in the story was thinking about just how much he needed so that he could feel safe enough to retire. And that's a question quite a few of us think about, have thought about, still think about. When will we have enough to stop working so we can sit back and finally enjoy life? When will we have enough to feel safe leaving the workforce? Will we ever believe that we have enough to live on for the rest of our lives? Who of us does not worry about that? Will I have enough? And when is enough enough? When do we feel secure enough to say, "I've got enough, I don't need any more"? Well, the rich man wanted leisure time, which was really odd because leisure in the first century was non-existent. People worked from sunup to sundown every day of every week of every year. And that's one reason why Judaism was so radical. The faith insisted that one day people would go without work so that they could praise God while enjoying the fruits of their labor. But the rich man envisioned a life without any work. He wanted leisure, nothing but leisure, so he could eat, drink, and be merry. Well, We live in a time when leisure is expected. Vacations, downtime, and relaxing, we build those into our lives. In fact, many of us don't worry about having too much leisure. We worry about being too busy. We worry about how to get enough free time, that our busyness and our work, well, gets in the way of our leisure. We regard rest and relaxation as our divine right. That's relatively new, like in the last 100 years new. But this man, he didn't want to work at all. He wanted to indulge himself. His only plans were to build bigger barns and to eat, drink, and be merry. He gave no thought to meaningful activity, helping others, or self-improvement. He was ready to play, and he felt he had the money to do just that. So the rich man's bumper sticker would have said, "I'm busy spending my children's inheritance." Now, I have to admit, I've read those bumper stickers and thought, good for you. You worked hard, let your kids work. Now's the time to enjoy everything you've worked hard for. But I have to admit, this parable has caused me to think, and perhaps rethink my attitude toward work, spending, and leisure. My guess is Jesus was warning the man in the crowd who wanted his brother to split the inheritance to be wary of the power of money and stuff. Because the more money and stuff we have, the more time we have to spend taking care of our money and our stuff. The bigger the house we have, the more we have to dust. The bigger the yard we have, the more we have to mow. The bigger the garden we have, the more we have to weed. The bigger the bank account we have, the more we have to look after it. I remember a friend of my mother who was really quite wealthy. And while it was nice to have more than enough, this friend confessed to my mom that she spent most of her time figuring out where to spend, save, and invest that money. And she didn't really like it. She didn't want a bigger house. She didn't want a new car. She didn't want endless vacations. She lived simply. And as a result, she would spend countless hours with a financial advisor trying to be a good steward of her bounty. The more stuff and money we own, the more stuff and money owns us. Her bumper sticker would have said, "I have more toys than anyone, but I did not win." More than anything, most of us want to do something meaningful with our time. We want to have enough to live without worrying. But rich or poor or somewhere in between, most of us are happiest when we believe who we are and what we are doing makes a difference in our world. When who we are and what we are doing makes a difference in someone's life. Most of us are happiest when we believe we are using our time and our abilities and our stuff serving God and God's people and God's creation. By serving God and God's people and God's creation, we find a true deep down joy and contentment that cannot be found in perpetual leisure. I mean, yes, money is a great tool to have, but beyond a certain point, it does not make us any happier. Studies have shown that. And yes, stuff is fun to have. I love stuff. I love toys. But let's face it, stuff doesn't last forever. And leisure is great, and there are a few people who enjoy rest and play and vacations more than I do, but our souls need to have a meaningful activity, meaningful occupation in order to be truly content. And the rich man didn't get any of that. He didn't understand how great his life could be if he looked beyond his own desires, his own stomach, and his own buildings. He died without living what he thought was the dream. He could not see beyond himself. His bumper sticker would have said, "I had it all, so what?" Which brings to the question, what does our bumper sticker say? If somebody was going to write a bumper sticker that described us, that we had to put on our car or on our backs or embroidered on a shirt, that wear around all the time, what would it say? What is our connection to our money? What's our connection to our stuff? What's our connection to our time? And what is it that we really value? What is our connection to God? Because the more we value serving God by serving God's people and God's creation with who we are and what we have, the happier we're going to be. So what does our bumper sticker say about us?